So last week we had several videos talking about tomatoes. I had a video, kind of a field video showing my field trials and some of my results from that. Then we did the taste test on a row by row shoot last week. And anytime we start talking about hybrid tomatoes, it's just funny to me, the big heirloom fans, the people who just poo-poo on the hybrids, where they come out of the woodworks like crazy. And I saw one guy who commented on the video, and he called them heirloom elitist, which was a term I'd never heard before. And it's anytime we do videos like that, we just get some really interesting comments, and it kind of lets me know, you know, it gives me an idea of what kind of the majority opinion is out there. Really interesting stuff. A lot of people are saying, you know, never heard of these varieties. Where do you get these varieties? Why haven't I ever heard of them? And so I kind of want to just go through a couple of those, you know, frequently asked questions we got from those videos.
Now, to be fair, though, on this particular taste testing, the heirloom did win.
No, the heirloom did win. Yeah, right. Oh, no,
it did last year.
Yeah, I can't remember the results last year. I was more talking about the production side of it, not necessarily the taste. So a lot of the hybrid varieties we carry them. You won't find them anywhere else. They're really, really improved hybrid varieties. There's lots of hybrids out there. You got Better Boy, Big Boy, some of those out there that are more popular that you could probably go to your local plant place, Home Depot or whatever, and buy. The ones we carry, you're not going to find at those places. They're a little more improved hybrids, almost what I call commercial grade hybrids.
Yep, and hybrids have come on a long ways, and we've went over this before, and we'll touch on it one more time. We went through a series with tomato breeding over the last 20 years, where they first started breeding for being able to ship, and flavor was not a big thing that they was breeding for. In the last few years, they've also done a lot of breeding to improve the flavor of the tomatoes, because everybody come to realize it don't matter how pretty it is, if it doesn't taste good, it's not worthwhile. So we have seen a big shift toward flavor. Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah. The other thing is the whole determinate versus indeterminate thing. I will never understand why someone would rather grow, if we're talking about just big beefsteak tomatoes, why you'd rather grow an indeterminate variety than a determinate. It just doesn't, I don't really understand it. To me, I like a small compact plant.
Yeah, I could understand it if you're growing in a greenhouse atmosphere and you're trellising them for a longer production period.
Yeah,
I could understand that.
But out in the garden, so, you know, indeterminates, they're going to require some more extensive trellis than what we do with the Florida weave. The other thing is your production is kind of just bled out over a longer period of time. I like getting all my tomatoes, getting my buckets ready, getting out there, getting them in that about 4 or 5 week window, and being done with them.
Well, those indeterminates have a hard time staying healthy over a longer period of time. You got a lot more disease and insect pressure over that longer period there, and they take a lot more abuse. It's harder to keep that plant healthy for, say, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks in. I'm talking about in production, 4 to 6 weeks of gathering time.
Right. But from what I hear from people, a vast majority of people are still growing indeterminates.
That's strange to me.
And I think it has to do with a majority of the channels and bloggers out there. That's all they talk about, is these indeterminate heirloom varieties. And down here, most everybody's growing determinates.
Determinates, yep. Although our cherry tomatoes are indeterminates.
Right, they're indeterminates. But like we always say, any tomato is going to be toast. The most disease-resistant tomato in the world is going to be toast here by the end of July, if not sooner. So you might as well grow a determinate and get all your production in that window.
Yeah,
there.
It's easier to manage.
It is easier to manage. So we, you know, we do a lot of canning, and that's why we like these hybrids. We like the nice, round, big, productive tomatoes.
And we tend to like a beef steak variety type of, let me say, a beef steak type tomato, which has plenty of meat in it.
Right. Some of the heirlooms, the kind of knotty looking ones, to me, they're a little more difficult to can. Because
Oh yeah, they way are, and they hold a lot more. They're a lot juicier too. They're harder to hold on a sandwich. They got a lot more. This year particularly, they seem to be a lot juicier than they were last year. Now I'm assuming that's got to do with how much moisture we've had, how much rain we've had. But there again, the flavor's off the charts on some of these.
Right.
I mean, you can't deny that.
And to do a canning run, you need a certain amount, and that's why growing determinates is important, because you need you a table full. You're not just going to can a little handful of tomatoes. It's not worth getting all your equipment around. So we canned a bunch of just tomatoes, but we also made this here pasta sauce. You can look at the color on
That's
that right
nice.
there. And nice dark red. And some people were asking, do we mix all our tomatoes together? We separate them and can them separately? No, we just mixed all ours together. And so this right here, and everybody always wants a recipe. I don't have a specific recipe, but I can give you close to what we did here. So my wife's got a friend who's got some Italian heritage, and she got some tips from her on how to do this pasta sauce right here. And it kind of tastes like maybe more like a marinara, but we've been eating a lot of it. It's real good. So what we did was we did our tomatoes like we would normally do. We got the peeling off of them, chopped them up, put them in the pot, get them going. But as far as seasoning here, and all this came from my garden, which I'm really excited about. I used my elephant garlic, my bell pepper, and my onion, some red onion I grew. And the trick was here to really get the flavor expressed, which you almost had to emulsify the garlic, the pepper, and the onion. So, you know, you eat some sauces that are kind of chunky. This right here, we almost blended up the garlic and stuff, and it really expressed the flavor. Now, you got to cook this down if you want it thicker than just canned tomatoes. And we cooked ours for about 6 hours. My wife's friend says they can cook theirs up to 10 hours sometimes.
Wow.
I got tired of cooking it, but I said it's getting late. So we cooked it down to the consistency that I wanted, and I figured I'd let you try a little bit here.
You know, from just looking at it, it would be great for some homemade pizza. That's kind of a base layer.
Yeah. Pizza is man, it's just absolutely popping full of flavor. You're not gonna go to a
That's nice.
You're not gonna go to a store and find anything close to that.
You got something there. That's nice.
Now it's our first year ever doing a pasta sauce, but we had some good directions from them Italians. They know how to do it, and really happy with the color on that. Can't beat that. And that was all done with hybrid tomatoes right there.
Very good.
One more thing about this. I was talking to our buddy James George the other day on the phone. He said they do something similar, and it takes him all day to do it. And he said they had somebody wanting to buy some of it. And he said, this thing ain't for sale. He said, I'd have to charge you way too much for it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that is good. So I got a little something I want to share also. And do you know what this is?
That looks like a little baby watermelon.
That is a baby doll if I've ever seen one right here. So this is our baby doll watermelon.
Who is that?
Well, no, I can't give all my secrets away. This is a baby doll that we sell.
That's a yellow. It's supposed to be yellow on the
It's supposed to be. We always take a big gamble when we cut watermelons on the show, but I'm gonna go with a gamble
You're
here.
gonna say who grew it until if it's good.
See if that's good, but it's popping good. See how it pops?
Yeah.
When you see the watermelons pop like that, you know you're doing. Ooh, yeah, it's gonna be a
I
good
better
one.
get
right
my knife out because I'm gonna
Yep.
eat some of this.
there. Yep. Man, look at there, look at there. Does that look nice or what?
It does. It would look nicer if it was sitting about right here.
I'm gonna share this, and I got shit out.
You gonna get your pick of the lid.
So to give you a little information on the baby dolls.
Now that's what we grew up eating as far as the yellow meat watermelon. This here is considerably brighter.
Brighter yellow it is, and this is a hybrid variety, and this is classified as an icebox watermelon, and that means that they don't get very big, 8 to 10 pounds. You can see that's a nice size. You got plenty of room to put these in the refrigerator. Early maturing variety. We're talking about 70 days, so this is a little early maturity than some of the bigger watermelons. You know, I think this is going to be on my list to do next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna start growing me some more watermelons. Or some watermelons. And I think I'm going to focus on some of the smaller ones there. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Man, that's some of the sweetest watermelon I've had. That is delicious. I believe that beats the sangria.
For sweetness,
I believe it does. Now, I know the yellow kind of throws you a little bit. When we eat yellow watermelon, our mind plays tricks on us, but...
Yeah, if you was blind, I don't know what the... we could do a blind tasting.
That is good right there.
And that right here fit in the refrigerator if you do want to chill it.
Now, I don't know if it's the ripeness of the water. It's a little... It's not quite as firm, and that has probably to do with the ripeness of it. It's perfect.
Yeah, the texture on it is not.
It probably wouldn't last very many more days, but that's
it ain't gonna last near more days. Sitting up here on the stage.
Baby doll watermelon. Let me show you what the pack looks like. I happen to have one here. There you have it there.
I was excited about adding that variety this year, and the fact we didn't get to try it, but I'm glad somebody grew it.
Gene Paul grew these.
Really?
Yep. Your step granddaddy grew these right here.
Well, he did a good job.
He did a great job.
And if anybody else grew them out there, let us know how you liked them. That's tough to beat right there.
He also grew the moon and stars. I got a big moon and stars down at the house. I'm gonna try it probably this afternoon, but this is quite a treat.
Man, if you had your little market stand or whatever and had you some of them sitting out there, I don't believe you'd be able to keep them on the table for long.
And it is a lot brighter flesh than what we're used to. I've grown, a few years ago, I grew the orange clove, which Jerry at Baker Creek just raves about. Jerry told me, he said, you got to grow these orange cloves. And they were okay, but it's a real dark orange flesh to it. And it had a thin, very thin rind to it. And it was okay. I don't know that I grew it again, but it was okay.
That's a pretty home run right there. All right. So we got watermelon, eating going on. Man, I've been busy these last couple weeks because I'm about to go on a little bit of a week vacation, and I don't need a whole lot to get somebody else over there to tend to.
You know, I was just thinking late yesterday afternoon, I was up at the greenhouse. The greenhouse is empty. I got one fig tree that I'm watering, and very few times out of the years our greenhouse is empty, but it is empty.
It is empty, and I've been in my garden pulling up plants left and right, cleaning up things. It's that time of year to kind of get everything cleaned up, get some cover crops down, get everything, just kind of take a little bit of a break. I still got a few things. I still got one more round of cucumbers coming along. We'll see how that handles. Those Lebanese squash I wanted to try, still got those coming along. But
my gourds, you know, I got a couple gourd varieties planted.
The Buell gourds?
The Buell gourds are doing wonderful, and I'm excited to have those on the show when they get ready to make some bowls out of it.
Yeah.
And also, I planted some of the vine okra. I got some of it planted yesterday, I believe. So gourds take the heat and do well. They're one of those things that you can plant and get away with growing all summer long. Because what happens is later on in the fall of the year, when the days get shorter, that shorter daylight is going to trigger those to bloom and to put on fruit. So they'll actually do real good come fall. As far as if you get that plant established well, they do really good at fruit on the fall.
That's interesting. Now, we've had a lot of people, and when they ask me this, I think, man, it's just too early. But a lot of people, they're getting ready for fall, growing already.
I've had a lot of people call and email talking about fall. Yeah.
Now, what we have to realize, so in the spring, we're way ahead of everybody. I mean, we've got people commenting on videos. They still waiting for their tomatoes to ripen, and I pulled all mine up. And so a lot of people are going to be starting fall transplants here towards the end of July. Now, we're going to wait into August, maybe into August, probably later, and we'll talk about a kind of transplanting schedule coming up on a future video there. But the people up north of us, they surprisingly enough, they already have to start thinking about, the fall stuff, the cabbage, stuff like that. So this time of year, they're way ahead of us.
Yeah, it flips around on us.
It flips around on us. What else we got going on? Our new sweeps, I meant to bring a set. The ones we went up, made them 50% thicker. We went from an 1/8 to 3/16 thickness on those. We got those on the site now. Nice and strong. They look good. nice sharp and zinc plated. So check those out. We got a high arch wheel hose back in stock, and the packages.
We got the doubles in stock. We got the singles in stock.
We got all the, still gonna be a while on the cedars. We got all the wheel hose in stock, so you can get those and take advantage of those. A lot of people gonna be planting fall corn. I've heard a lot of people getting ready to plant fall corn. Get a lot of people asking what variety they should plant for fall, and as I always tell them, there's not a specific variety that's going to do better in fall than any other variety.
No, I tend to tell people what I've had experiences with, and we got a large seed selection. I by no means have grown most of them, but I have grown a few of them. I can testify that an ambrosia has done well as a fall planting. Now, the ambrosia is a bicolor corn, and it did really good for us. Now, I've never grown it in the fall but one time, but I was impressed with it. Never grown it in the spring, but I did grow it in the fall. So it is a good one. And I tell people, if you don't know, try that one.
Right. I would maybe, if I had any advice, go with a little more faster maturing variety in the fall. So something like your SEs, like your ambrosia, or even the triple sweets. We've never tried to grow in the standard varieties in fall.
No.
But the sweeter ones do mature. They get up going a little better for you.
They do.
All right. Don't forget about our cookbook that we're putting together. If you got any recipes you want to add to it, we mentioned those categories on a previous show. You can snail mail us your recipe, or you can send us an email to custserve@hosstools.com. We're already getting some good ones in there. Jason at Cog Hill sent me a couple.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. A sun gold pasta recipe. Was pretty good, and I think it was pickled squash. Looked pretty good. Anyway, so on this week's show, neat little idea we got from one of our viewers who commented, and he said, you know, you always do a good job at providing recommendations on crops and stuff, but what are the crops that you struggle with, things that you're not very good at?
And I hate to talk about what I struggle with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can talk all day long about what I'm good at.
Right, yeah.
I hate to talk about what I struggle.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on the negative, do
Nope. But we can do that.
And so I thought we would present it this way. Let's start off with, and we're going to list 5 crops each that we are kind of our 5 best that we think we are individually good at, and then we'll get into the bad ones. So we won't be all doom and gloom here.
No need in that.
Now, when we get to the bad ones, they could be, I won't say bad, when we get to the crops we struggle with, we could struggle with them for several reasons. Some of mine I struggle with just because where I live down here, the weather doesn't always cooperate. Some of them I struggle with just because I ain't very good at growing them. So there could be several reasons why we struggle with them. But let's talk about the good ones first. And I've got mine more center. There's a lot to choose from there. I've got mine more centered around fall planting because that's what's coming up here in the next few months. So all mine are more fall cool weather crops.
I did a little bit, but I didn't go all that route. So
okay. You want me to go first?
You go first.
So my first one that I'm pretty confident, and all these are ones that I could fail at, but I would say 9 out of 10 times have a good crop. My first one being carrots. I got the carrot thing figured out down here. We do several carrot videos a week. Planting them thick, double rows on drip, works like a charm every time. Had a lot of people who struggled with carrots and have started doing it that way.
They were not going to call any names.
And Jason at Cog Hill, he tried it that way last year. He had a real good carrot harvest. That technique works really good. So carrots would be my number 1.
Number 1 for me is tomatoes. I've been growing them for a long time, and I kind of pride myself on being a good tomato grower. Figured it out early on. I've worked with you somewhat on your tomato growing. You've had your hardships there, and we've kind of worked around and got you going in a pretty good direction. You did real good this year,
yeah.
And I was proud of you. I'm proud you took direction from me.
I did.
And I got figured out most people starve their tomatoes, and I learned early on you got to feed them hard, they're heavy feeders. So I do a good job with tomatoes, and proud of that fact.
You do. I cannot disagree with that one. My number 2 is lettuce. I've got the lettuce, especially succession planting the lettuce. As soon as that temperature breaks, I can grow lettuce from September on through April, sometimes into May, depending on how cool spring we go. And just boom, 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 replant it, replant it, replant it. Got to feed that lettuce early on, kind of get it going. Having drip there helps. Stack it in there tight. So a lot of those specialty lettuces we sell, I can grow those pretty good.
You do. For me, watermelons. Watermelons are one of the things that I do well with, and I can tell you the secret to growing watermelons is rotation. You want to grow watermelons where they haven't been grown in the last few years, and preferably if you can put them on some new ground, you're better off. There's a lot of soil diseases that mess with watermelons, and that's the secret there on that one. Drip irrigation and good rotation.
Got to have drip on watermelons, don't you?
Yep.
My number 3 is beets. And I wasn't always good at growing beets, but once I realized the trick for me, at least, consistency and everything is transplanting them. I can do beets all throughout that fall and early spring season, and pretty much always get nice, consistently sized beets. Transplant being the key there.
Yeah,
it's a little more work.
A little more work, but I tell you, beets can give for a long period of time. I mean,
they store well in the fridge. Well. Once you dig them, they'll store for 3 weeks.
Winter squash for me is a good one, easy one. Same thing pertains to winter squash as does watermelons. Got to have drip irrigation, and you need some new ground there or good rotation there, and you'll be good. Has a lot of diseases in the soil as well that can affect them, and if you'll treat them, grow your watermelons just like you do your winter squash, you'll be successful.
My 4th one I'm good at, and I ain't got a ton of years on my belt with this one, but last year I was able to nail it down pretty quick, and that's rutabagas. As far as the greens, and get some nice big rutabagas there. And going back to kind of like the same thing with the beets, the transplanting has worked really well for me. On the rutabagas, a little more work, but getting them spaced out just right, and then getting them on that drip, being able to shoot the juice to them really helps.
Corn. Whether it be sweet corn or field corn, I feel like I'm pretty good at that. You got to feed that corn. Key to it there is good water, getting it there, and a lot of fertilizer. A lot of people don't fertilize their corn enough. They get stunted early on. If they ever get stunted, it's hard to come out of it.
There's some timing.
There's some time to be there, and as I tell people, you know when you got it just right, when you burn that leaf a little bit. So corn's one of my good ones.
My 5th one, and like I said, these are kind of fall-centric, will be collards. Now, collards ain't hard to grow, but you got to kind of do it right if you want to grow them 9 months out of the year, like I tend to do. And it starts with good varieties, varieties like the Tiger, which, you know, rest in peace, Tiger collards, no longer with us. But the top bunch did good for me on into the warmer months this year. Good varieties and good collards almost year round.
This next one I got is going to throw you for a little loop.
Okay.
Onions. Now, I've not always been the best onion grower, but I've gotten the hang of it. You know, we've really concentrated on giving some good advice on how to grow onions the last couple of years. And that, when the bubbling process starts, to stop your fertilization has made a big difference in my onion growing. I do a great job growing onions, but to pay attention and to fertilize them at the right time and to stop fertilizing them at the right time and letting them go through their bubbling process, it's a game changer.
Yeah, a lot of people that don't do as good with onions don't understand the onion life or growth cycle and the 2 phases and all that. Once you master that, it's pretty easy to get it down.
Yep.
All right, so now we're going to get into the bad news.
Oh, the bad news. Let me go first on this one.
Okay.
Because I got to eat a little humble pie here.
Okay, go ahead.
My number one thing that I have a hard time growing that you had on your list that you know how to grow well is carrots.
Yeah.
I really, really struggle with carrots.
Yeah.
Carrots, one of the things I would love to be able to grow. They're fun to grow. Not only that, they're good. They store well. I just got where I love them. Good fresh carrots out of the garden. I think my problem is I'm too impatient on them.
You got a couple issues. Would you like a little help?
Oh, sure.
You're impatient, and of course this happens when you've been growing in a spot for a long time. To do really good with carrots, you need to have a low weed seed bank. If you got too much weed pressure there, them carrots take 2-3 weeks to get going good. Once they get up, you can manage the weeds pretty good, but you can't have your weeds out racing your carrot sprouts. In some of your spots, you've got a little high weed pressure. I think that causes you some problems.
So I would be better off, do you think, to move to an area there that was new ground?
Or really focus on lowering your weed seed bank in a spot where you're going to plant carrots, doing some tarping, something like that.
Thank you so much for your advice.
You're welcome. My number one is Brussels sprouts. Now, I made a good crop of Brussels sprouts last year, but that was the first good crop I had made in about 3 or 4 years. I'm just not consistent with them at all. Now, is that always my fault? Not always. Sometimes my timing's off, but a lot of times we just don't get cold enough here to really trigger some good sprout production. A lot of times, my timing may be off. I don't feed them as much. The Brussels sprouts, they stay in the ground. You think onions stay in the ground a long time. Them Brussels sprouts stay in the ground for a long
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, that was on my list too.
That was on your list too?
Brussels sprouts.
So we don't need to talk about that one.
No, I'll mention it when I get there, but it wasn't in my top 2, but it was on my list.
Okay. Go ahead with
Ford hooks. Ford hooks. We love Ford hooks. I have the hardest.
Tell people what Ford hooks are.
Ford hooks is a big butter bean, and we love them. But I have the hardest time getting Ford hooks to come up. Mostly even making a crop. I cannot ever get them to germinate and come up out of the ground. I've tried over and over again, and that's just it's to the point I don't even try anymore. And that's one of my, I wish I could get over that one. I don't know what my issue is.
You don't know what's going on there?
I can grow the pole beans, the pole speckle beans, ain't a problem. Those bush Ford hooks, I just cannot grow.
I thought we used to grow the fire of them growing up.
We did.
That's how I remember having to pick them all summer long.
But I got where I just cannot grow them.
Huh, interesting. Number 2 for me, and I ain't figured this one out, is shallots. I ain't got the shallot thing figured out quite yet. I can have some decent, healthy looking plants, but they start multiplying and splitting off of me. They never really get real big. Sometimes they kind of rot in the soil on me, get soft. I just haven't done.
I think in a colder climate they would do better.
Maybe so. Maybe it's just down here they don't do as well. I do want to try growing them from seed as opposed to planting sets and see if that makes a difference. But my success with shallots has just been all right. I can't grow like the nice, pretty ones you get in the grocery store.
Right. So my next one is English peas. English peas is worthwhile growing.
On my list too.
English peas is one of those I tell people, I said, about every 3rd time I plant them, I'm going to make a crop. But they are so good, it's worth it. It's worth trying it every year. And every year I plant them, and I'm not planting 2 crops of them. And I may or may not make a crop. But when you do.
If you can get one pot of them.
Oh, man, they are delicious. Timing. Time is the issue on English peas, and I can't never really get them.
Timing, and I'll tell you what I think it is. So that was my number 3. So that segue, and just so you know, we didn't discuss these beforehand. My number 3 is English peas as well. And I think our biggest problem with English peas is English peas, you need a lot of that in-between weather. And we don't get a lot of that in-between weather. You remember last year we flew up to for a conference to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and was there for a week. And it was just nice in-between weather during the middle of summer. And we just don't get that down here. It's either hot or
nasty.
Yeah, hot or nasty. And our springs are oftentimes shortened. Our summers are too long. And sometimes the weather's just right. I did pretty good with mine last fall, but it just happened that way. Time is tough on English peas for us down here.
Yep. My next one is peppers. Believe it or not, I have a little bit of a time growing peppers. Now I can grow peppers, but my peppers do not do as well as I'd like for them to, and I blame it on insect pressure. One of the things, I don't normally grow a lot of peppers because they just don't take a lot for us. I probably neglect them a little bit. I think on my peppers, if I had a better spray program, I would do better. Thrips seem to jump on them early, even before we get them out of the greenhouse. We'll see that leaf crinkle up a little bit, and you know you got some insect pressure.
And leaf bugs get on this
Yeah, I
time
think
of
a harder, more consistent spray program, and I'd be more successful.
I agree. Would you on I agree that you haven't done that great on peppers.
Thank you.
Number 4, and this is a crop, with the exception of the cover crop I have in the ground there, a crop I don't even grow anymore, and that's field peas. And they're not that hard. They're not hard to grow down here. And I know I got neighbors that can grow them. For some reason, I can't grow them without them just getting stung up to all get out. And I know some of the commercial guys have issues with it. That pea curculio as well. But I quit growing them because I just got aggravated with it. I could spray them every day, and they still got eat up. So field peas is a bugaboo. It'll be interesting to see if I have a lot of curculio on our iron, because you got iron clay peas planted too. No, we ain't gonna let the pods get out there to get wore out by them, but it'd be interesting to see if we have any pressure.
Yep. Well, my last one is Brussels sprouts, and we've already gone over that. I'll add one thing to it. Why I don't think I'm successful in them. They take so long, I lose interest in them, and I don't take care of them all the way through. They are such a long season crop, man. It just wears you down. And I find myself not spreading them there at the end like I should, and I make a harvest most of the time. They just don't come off as well as I'd like for them to.
Yeah.
And they're delicious.
They are. They're one of my favorite things to eat. My last one, number 5, is not a specific crop, but just kind of all in general. And this is something I really want to get good at, and I'm going to focus on probably next year or two, is herbs. I ain't worth a poot at growing herbs. Now I got a big old...
It's timing on the harvesting on herbs.
Now I got a big old rosemary bush out by my in-ground garden, and it looked good for about 4 or 5 years, and then this year it just looks terrible, and I don't know what I should have done to it or anything. Seems like every time I've tried to grow basil or cilantro, my timing's off, and just as soon as it's ready, it's bolting. Same thing with dill or something like that.
Yeah.
I really need to step, because, you know, the wife I said everything from this was from the garden, except some store-bought herbs. It would be nice if I could go out and really understand which herbs go with certain dishes and kind of add that to my repertoire as far as homegrown goes. I really want to be able to do that.
Yeah, and basil and cilantro, those two come out of just, man, fresh.
I can eat cilantro, just a bunch of it. So that was my 5 and your 5, right?
Yep, that's right.
So that was pretty interesting and pretty humbling.
It was.
And for those of you out there, we'd love to hear what your 5 kind of booger crops are, ones that you just struggle with. You eating the seeds on that?
No, I haven't. I want you to look at that. Folks, I have ate me some of them now. I won't tell you what, that was absolutely, you going to eat the rest of yours? That was delicious.
I might have slide over Gene Paul's at night.
Big shout out to Gene Paul sharing these with us. That's quite a treat here.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I didn't grow some of these. Anyway, so share with us what your 5 kind of toughest crops to grow, or what you struggle with. We'd like to see kind of if anybody else struggles with the same ones we do. We got some questions from last week's show. And if we answer your question on the show, send us an email to cussserve@hosstools.com. We'll send you a nice little prize.
First one comes from Cynthia Green Oasis. And she says, you should go live. You should go live so we can ask questions and get the answers right then.
Now, we get this every now and then, and I'll answer it every so many months. And explain why we don't do this live. We got this business here that we running, and then in the evenings we pretty tired, and we like to go home and work on our gardens, and then kind of sit down and relax a little bit. So it just doesn't work out with our schedule to do it live. We started out, when we first started this thing, we tried to do it live, which meant we had to do it in the middle of the day, because that's when we're here. Not a lot of people are able to sit there and watch it during the middle of the day. A lot more people can watch it Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. when they're at home sitting on the couch or whatever. So there's kind of trade-off there. Go live, not as many people can see it, or pre-record it and air it at a time when a lot more people can watch it.
I'm allowed to be asleep by 8:30.
Yeah. Well, at this time, you don't get dark till 9. I'm usually out there piddling around in the garden.
As my father says, I done had 2 nightmares by then.
All right, number 2 is from Tomas Wilson, and he says, will any of the cover crops reseed themselves? He's looking at using them for livestock forage.
Yeah, that's a good question. It caused me to do just a tad bit of research on this, and I'm glad I did. So the 2 cover crops that reseed the best is buckwheat on the summer spectrum of the summer cover crops, and then clover on the winter side of it. And hairy vetch also reseeds pretty good, but clover as a standalone is going to work a little bit better. And believe it or not, both of those do very good as forage crops for livestock. I didn't realize that buckwheat did so well as a forage crop. A lot of people will actually take it and put it up for hay, so it's news to me. The problem you're going to run into there is if you let them eat it down, so that's not going to have an opportunity to seed out. So you got to let that crop alone, let it seed out. Buckwheat's known for its invasive qualities. That's also a good thing when you're trying to get it reseed. Clover does the same thing, so you'd want to plant your buckwheat in the summer, let it go to seed, work it into the soil, then come fall, plant your clover, let it go all winter long, and then in the springtime it'll seed out and then come back the following year. So yeah, that would be a good combination. Buckwheat and then clover.
I ain't gonna do it right now, but as soon as this show's over, because I'm gonna make a mess, I'm gonna turn this thing up.
I was gonna ask you if that would be rude if that would happen. I was thinking the same thing.
You had it on your mind?
I did.
All right, what we got next?
All right, from Michael Archibald. He says, you guys mentioned that apples are hard to grow in the South. Are there any other crops you wish you could grow but are limited to by climate?
Yeah, there's a few here, and I already talked about one of them. We're not limited, but Brussels sprouts would do better if we were up north. English peas would be easier to grow if we were up north. The 2 big ones that we just can't grow are some of the hardneck and softneck garlics. There's a lot of those, man. They're just really pretty, and we have to be envious. We see people posting pictures of those all the time, and just don't get cold enough here to stratify them. You get any others you can think of there?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm kind of into my watermelon right now.
Mesmerized. You think about drinking that juice in a minute. All right, the last one for you says from William R. says, I'm cutting back the amount of square footage I plant each season, but I still want to keep the fertility of the unplanted soil so I can plant there later. What can I do with a plot that won't have a cash crop for nearly a year? And I think this ties into the previous question you had there. And a lot of people want to know, what's the cover crop I can plant and leave there for a year? But it don't really work that way because you got warm season and cool season.
Yeah, so buckwheat, we talked about earlier, it's a fast growing crop which lends itself well to weed suppression. But it's not going to lend itself well for a long-term summer cover crop. However, I think sorghum sudan grass would. Sorghum sudan grass is a monocot, and it's going to do better if you don't have a window you need to get it out of. If you can just put it out there and leave it and let it go, it's the summer cover crop we sell that I think would do great in that situation. When fall gets here, you are going to have to work it into the soil and turn around and plant one for the winter. And there again, I would recommend clover. So sorghum sudan grass, work it into the soil, and then plant your clover come late fall.
I agree. Especially if you can mow that sorghum sudan grass. It's the one where you got the longest window, you ain't got to do nothing with it.
And for some reason or another, monocots do better on a long term where you're leaving something, letting it lay by. A monocot does better than a dicot does.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so if y'all have any questions from tonight's show, put those in the comments. As always, we'll be glad to get to them on next week's show. Anything else you just getting excited about?
No, I'm good.
Can we get some more of these?
We'll see. We'll make a phone call and see.
Maybe since we provided such a glaring recommendation, we can get some more.
I hope so.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. Don't forget to give us a big like, big share, a big thumbs up if you did enjoy the video. And if you did, check out these other 2 videos right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.
Take care.